Yo, what's going on, everyone? What's good? As you guys know, I love doing these video game console updated review things, but I didn't really realize how big of an impact I was in pop culture because I literally Google searched original Nintendo DS, and for some reason my 2018 review of this device popped up in my recommended. Now, it could be because I watch my own videos and those things usually, I guess the algorithm or whatever, but could it be that I have more of an impact on Nintendo than Nintendo themselves? I'm not going to leave that out of an option, so Nintendo, go ahead and DM me. I want at least like 20% of your profits this year, hopefully. And if you guys think I'm being serious, then yes, I'm being completely serious. But we're going to take a look at the original Nintendo DS. I think I've already done a review of the Nintendo DS Lite. I freaking love that console. I have way more Nintendo consoles to go. I've already done the Game Boy Micro, which I never reviewed this year. We're going to look at the original Nintendo DS, man. And I really, this console sits in a weird place in my heart because in a way, it kind of revolutionized the way Nintendo was going to move for like at least like another decade or two after this. Well, probably like a decade and a half almost. And also what it kind of did to me, because me personally, I never owned a Nintendo DS original one when I was younger. I didn't really grow up with it, but I always knew people who had one and they were super, super cool. I freaking love these things to death. But I did own a Nintendo DS Lite, and that was pretty much just a successor to this thing. And the whole entire Nintendo DS lineup had such a huge effect on me as a person. I used to play those video games all the time. New Super Mario Bros, man, Metroid, all those different things. And I think the Nintendo DS brought a lot. And I mean, just starting off kind of looking around it, I mean, you can kind of tell, man, this thing does not look like the prettiest thing ever. And I made a whole video last year about like the ugliest video game console. And, unsurprisingly, I gave it to the Nintendo DS, the original one. And, for good reasons. I mean, it wasn't the best looking thing, my unit especially. I think the gray one just, I don't know what Nintendo was thinking. It's like so disproportionate. Like you have the weird looking like front, like I guess the middle of the thing where the hinges are, that looks really awkward. The screens are still kind of exposed when it's closed, but you know what? This was back in like 2004. I don't want to go too hard on it, man. I made that whole ugliest game console video. I think I've already done enough damage to this thing. What I'm going to tell you is the whole hinge mechanism, just the dual screen setup and everything. I'm going to give it major props for that, just because, like I said, this was the same type of design Nintendo was going to use for many, many, many years after this for the Nintendo DS Lite, the Nintendo DSi lineup, the Nintendo 3DS, and kind of the Nintendo 2DS lineup too, not really, but the 2DS XL 100%. So that in and of itself is a pretty humongous reason why I have so much respect for the Nintendo DS. And surprisingly, in 2019 right now, I was able to pick, actually back in 2018, I was able to pick one of these things up for I think $15 or $20, very, very cheap. It was not that expensive at all. And even now, I went back onto eBay to look at the prices, and if you buy them in the United States, they're like still around like that $30 price mark, give or take. You might be able to get some cheaper ones too, but I've seen some of these things from Japan, okay? Now you would think, I don't know where this comes from, but like I would imagine if it's coming from Japan, it's probably going to be more expensive because of the shipping, they have to ship it over here into the United States. But for a lot of these consoles in Japan, they're selling for much, much cheaper, and the shipping is almost always free. And so they'll ship it here for like $10. Sometimes I've gotten like PSPs before for like $9 or $12 here and there. It's free shipping. It's crazy stuff. So I'd recommend, man, these things are super, super cheap. Very, very, very good consoles. But that doesn't necessarily mean it's still worth it. This is just a nostalgic kind of review at it too. Now, at this time, when this thing was released, the main competitor for this thing was the PlayStation Portable. Now, I'm reading most of this from Wikipedia, so shout out to them. And so I remember back in the day, the Nintendo DS and the PlayStation Portable were kind of going back and forth. They were like seeing which one would be better. And I think that kind of pushed Nintendo to kind of hurry up and push Nintendo DS Lite, because the DS original one was kind of behind, not so much in the functionality, but more so of the way it looks, because this thing just did not look as good as the Sony PlayStation Portable. Now, I still don't think I've reviewed a PlayStation Portable this year. I have literally every single PSP, the 1000, 2000, 3000, the PSP Go, the PSP Street. I have every single one, the PS Vita. I just have not reviewed them. I gotta review them. But another humongous selling point of the Nintendo DS was actually the backwards compatibility to the Nintendo Wii. So that was really, really cool. And just like how the Game Boy Advance was backwards compatible with the GameCube, you could have a lot of other functionality between the Nintendo Wii and the Nintendo DS. So that was super, super cool. Now, that's kind of covering everything for the basics. Obviously, the dual screen setup, the stylus it had, the buttons were really weird. I didn't really like them too much, but this thing had the headphone jack, which a lot of phones and a lot of devices are cutting out. So shout out to Nintendo, man. They future-proofed this thing. Now, here's the thing. That's kind of all the specifications, all the basic stuff out of the way. What I'll tell you is the Nintendo DS, in my opinion, is probably one of not only the best valued consoles you can get right now. I would probably still recommend you get a DS Lite, but the whole entire Nintendo DS game library is one of the craziest things in my opinion. Okay, now there's a lot of people who say, oh, it's a whack, it's this and that, it's nothing, it's weird, you shouldn't buy it, whatever. I'm gonna tell you guys, no cap, this thing, without a doubt, has an extremely decent gaming library size. And it's weird because sometimes I will just hop into GameStop. I don't even game anymore, I'll be honest. But sometimes I will go into GameStop, I'll go to all these places, and I will still see Nintendo DS games, tons and tons of them. And I'll look at them, and they're still selling for like 20, 30 bucks. I'm like, bro, who's gonna pay $20, $30 for a DS game? And there's like so many emulators online. They need to sell them for like half that price. But nonetheless, I've seen so many, man. You had all those different Mario games. You had GTA Chinatown Wars, which in my opinion was an extremely, extremely crazy game. I have so much love for that game. It's so good. You had all those racing games. You had Mario Kart DS and all those different games, man. That's why I think the Nintendo DS will probably never die. Obviously, it's not getting software support or anything like that. But in terms of just the overall gaming library, bro, there's nothing better than a Nintendo gaming library, I think. Okay, now I could be totally wrong now I think about it. The PlayStation, obviously, their whole entire gaming library is crazy. But I think in terms of portable consoles, the Nintendo DS, I think, had more of an impact on me, probably because I personally owned one when I was younger, than I guess the PlayStation Portable, even then the Game Boy Advance, and I owned that for a very long time. Well, regardless, dude, the Nintendo DS had a humongous gaming library, so much respect for it, and honestly, looking back, there's no more games being made for the Nintendo DS, but I think there's still some being made for the 3DS, and this is just such a good nostalgic console because this is really in the middle, especially when you consider right now in 2019, there's not a lot of people who are taking risks, not a lot of big companies, and it goes outside of the gaming market. Like, you look at like the PlayStation 5 or the Xbox 720, whatever they're going to call it, or the Nintendo Switch 2. All these gaming manufacturers, like, what are they going to do next? Like, we don't know, and most likely, we don't know if they're going to take a humongous risk or not. Like, what could the PlayStation 5 bring that the PlayStation 4 does not already do? Same thing for the Xbox, same thing for the Nintendo. But if you rewind back to 2004, when Nintendo was about to release another portable console, they could have easily stuck to that Block Boy design, like from the Game Boy or the whatever, but they took that Game Boy SP design, re-engineered it, and brought a console with 2 screens, which at the time, I mean, I guess you had like the Game & Watch, you had a couple other things like that too back in the day, but there were, in my opinion, a lot of companies taking risks. You had Nintendo doing this, you had Sony dropping the PlayStation Portable, which was rumored for a very long time. Thank God they did it because it was a humongous success in my opinion. I love it to death. And you kind of look at that now and you just kind of see all these companies kind of doing the same thing over and over again. And I guess looking back in the Nintendo DS is more so than just like talking about, oh, it did this, it did that, it brought this to this, it had this gaming library, whatever. I think it's more so like the effect and I guess the timestamp that it had in terms of the whole, I guess like the early 2000s, even the continuing on to now. What other gaming consoles do you know that still have a little bit of its history, still have a little bit of its components in the gaming community today? I mean, like I said, the 3DS, a lot of people still buy it. You can still buy it in the stores. A lot of people still play it. And that all originated from the Nintendo DS. So this was kind of a branch away from where I kind of wanted to go. In the 2018 video, I talked more about the specs, about the game library, all that stuff. But I kind of wanted to change it up. I mean, I always talk about the specs and this and that, but I think the history of what a device can bring and the impact it has is really, really cool. I mean, this thing, was one of the first gaming consoles to bring Wi-Fi inside of it, including a portable console. You could do picto chat, which was super crazy, man. I used to talk to so many like moms and dads on there, dude. It's crazy. I used to be like, man, your son needs to drop out of middle school. He's bullying me, whatever. All that crazy stuff, man. And the Nintendo DS, I wouldn't say pioneered all that stuff, but if I had to put a generic title on it, I would say this is kind of like the Soldier Boy of gaming consoles. Before Soldier Boy actually started making his own gaming console, he started ripping everything off. I think this was the kind of originator in a way. And I don't want to give Soldier Boy too much credit, but what this console did was set a stepping stone into the portable gaming console. It got a lot more people's attention into the gaming community in terms of the portable consoles. And even though the Nintendo DS was more so sought after for like the younger generations, they didn't have too many like super graphical games or anything crazy like that. What it did bring was more attention, I think, to the portable gaming console community. And even though a lot of people bought the PSP over this and every vice versa, whatever, I still have so much respect for the Nintendo DS. And if you're in the market for a used gaming console or anything like that, I would say just pick up a Nintendo DS. Even if you're not going to play it, have some respect for it. I put some respect on the Nintendo DS's name. I would recommend picking one up. I mean, like I said, you can pick them up on eBay for like $15, probably even like a little bit more, maybe a little bit less. You just got to do your research. Go on eBay and search by the lowest price. That's how I would recommend it. But if you really need something that you want to bring with you everywhere, to portable console, whatever, I mean, you can always download an emulator. But I really think having the physical console in your hands is like 30,000 times better. And I think the Nintendo DS Lite is probably the lowest you want to go there. Nintendo DS, if you currently own it, obviously you guys know it's not that bad of a console, but the Nintendo DS Lite just takes it up a notch by like 30,000 points. So that is pretty much it, man. A long-winded video, a long-awaited one, I think, for some of you guys. The last one, like I said, I mean, it got video views were like in 6 figures or something like that. I know a lot of you guys were waiting for this one, but more so, I want to hear from you guys. What do you guys think of the Nintendo DS? Do you think you still like it? Do you think it's weird? Do you think this and that? Were you a PSP person? Let me know in the comment section below. I would love to hear what you guys have to say. But that is pretty much it, man. Hit that like button. That'll mean so much, but definitely hit that subscribe button. Every single subscriber that we get really does count, so it'll mean so much if you guys could hit that. Also, check out the other links down in the description as well. My Twitter, my Instagram, my second channel, all those links are linked down below. I would really appreciate if you guys could check it out. But more importantly than everything else, I love every single one of you guys. Hopefully I'll catch you guys in the next video. Peace out till then.